All right, back for part 2.
Been a long time coming, but we're serving up the sequel.
Oh my gosh, why did you get that in my head? All right. So to kick off this part, we're going to have our disembodied sister voice in the background read a section from Mere Christianity.
By C.S. Lewis.
This isn't really talking about Christianity per se, but it's a section where C.S. Lewis talks about polytheism, or dualism as he calls it, and the inherent issue with it.
Discusses pros, cons, and why.
Very fascinating section.
Kind of bad idea.
All right, so we're going to be quiet now and listen.
The two powers, or spirits, or gods, the good one and the bad one, are supposed to be quite independent. They both existed from all eternity. Neither of them made the other. Neither of them has any more right than the other to call itself God. Each presumably thinks it is good and thinks the other bad. One of them likes hatred and cruelty. The other likes love and mercy, and each backs its own view. Now what do we mean when we call one of them the good power and the other the bad power? Either we are merely saying that we happen to prefer the one to the other, like preferring beer to cider, or else we are saying that whatever the two powers think about it, and whichever we humans at the moment happen to like, one of them is actually wrong, actually mistaken, in regarding itself as good. Now, if we mean merely that we happen to prefer the first, then we must give up talking about good and evil at all, for good means what you ought to prefer, quite regardless of what you happen to like at any given moment. If being good meant simply joining the side you happen to fancy for no real reason, then good would not deserve to be called good, so we must mean that one of the two powers is actually wrong and the other is actually right. But the moment you say that, you are putting into the universe a third thing in addition to the two powers, some law, or standard, or rule of good, which one of the powers conforms to, and the other fails to conform to. But since the two powers are judged by this standard, then this standard, or the being who made this standard, is farther back and higher up than either of them, and he will be the real God. In fact, what we meant by calling them good and bad turns out to be that one of them is in a right relation to the real ultimate God, and the other in a wrong relation to him.
Ah, so good.
C.S. Lewis is a smart man.
He is my favorite author for a reason. As he so clearly and concisely put, this is the problem. Making moral judgments in polytheism. As I said in the last video, polytheism's morality is completely fear-based. Whoever can hit you the hardest wins. That's the right person to follow. It doesn't matter whether what they tell you to do is as terrible as sacrifice your own child.
Which some of them do have to do in the mythology.
Commit human sacrifice, drink blood, you would literally find no end of messed up things. Like sexual worship, it was all there in many different religions. Greek mythology, Mayan, it's everywhere. And it's okay, even when it's against underage girls, slaves. It's terrible, but it's all justified if it's to this God. Right and wrong don't enter the equation, except as subject to power. In other words, might makes right. However, many people feel very strongly that that is not true and is not the way it should be. Where does this feeling come from if polytheism is true? And in the world of Remnant, as far as they're concerned, why does Salem feel like the gods are unfair if it's not possible that they are unfair? And as Jen even says, when she and Ozpin meet in their new forms and immediately know each other, it seems like it was something the gods didn't even know about. Something more powerful than them. Love. Now, if love is more powerful even than the gods, where does love come from? If the gods didn't make it, and clearly don't understand it very well, given their squabbling, and yet it's still a part of them and still something even they feel subject to, as evidenced by their argument and the older brother trying to make peace with his younger brother. Clearly, there's some sort of weird love between them. Even if they don't love their creation, they kind of love each other in a weird way.
They try to reach compromise for some purpose.
Even they are subject to this universal law. And as Maria tells RWBY, even though the Silver Eyes may be from the God of Light, they're not activated simply by light. They're activated by love. So it seems like the God of Light is working with this other power more than his brother is, and it would seem that light and creativity fall more in line with what love would normally have us do than destruction does.
The question is, what is this power? And
Where is
where is it?
Where is it? Where did it come from? And what does this have to do with free will? See, apparently the gods gave human beings free will, and assuming that is true, but why do they have it? Why can they choose between light and dark if light and dark are their essence?
And
or
why-
is it just something they sort of take care of? Even the God of Light's words seem to suggest that may actually be true because they can go back and forth between the two and they can make wrong and right choices. It's more like they're guardians of the world than
Ruling it
then they
single-handedly.
have the access to the ultimate knowledge of the universe. I mean, they call it an experiment. Where did they get the idea for this experiment?
What inspired
And
them
where
to
did
try
they
this?
get free will? And how does free will differ with polytheism? And when you have two gods who are supposed to be equal, but opposites.
And the
You're
fact-
constantly choosing between two equal things. What motivates you to pick one over the other? I'm sorry. I wasn't done with my thought. What were you going to say?
And how is it that even though the gods gave humanity so many gifts, they seem to not be able to control nor understand how the humans possessed love? We remember, they said that they gave them choice. They gave them some form of morality, but they never gave them love.
And love strongly influences what you choose. People who don't love tend to choose darkness. People who do love tend to choose light. It's not always exclusively that way, as Salem is pretty much proof of. But even so, many people have already pointed out there's a problem with the way Salem loves.
It's a selfish love.
She's possessive, implying there's a right and wrong way even to love. Again, where does this idea come from? We're not really given an answer. We just know that characters like RWBY have a very strong sense of right and wrong, and obviously she didn't get it from the gods.
Definitely.
Obviously.
With creatures so incompetent apparently running everything, what's actually keeping this world from imploding when they're gone?
And if free will is simply choosing between two equals, what of judgment? Why do the gods think they can judge the world if it's only choosing between two equal parts? If all Salem did was divide them or make humanity attack them, is that really fair? Humanity was rebelling against both of them at the same time. So the idea that you should serve the gods is beyond the idea that they're equal? What? What gives them that right? What gives them the right to judge when they themselves make mistakes? They're not good, so why can they say what Salem did was wrong? Okay, this gets back to like, you have the big guns, you make the rules, right? But why does that then feel so unfair? And why does Salem still feel there must be a way to overthrow them and make things better, even if in her twisted mind, better means she's in charge? Which is not better. As bad as they are, I would still take them over Salem. Anyway, I mean, can polytheistic gods be good or evil? Are they both?
Polytheistic gods, or pantheons, as they're sometimes referred to, usually show a mix at best.
It's always as if people associate some of the gods with good and some of them with evil, and yet they can't really decide which one they have to serve, because you have to serve them all.
But when you read the mythology, the pantheons usually exhibit traits in multiple gods. Gods that are usually presented as gods of negative things, like the god of the underworld, also has some good attributes.
The problem is that humanity judges the gods. We actually look at them and can say, that's wrong, that's right. And as C.S. Lewis points out, if that's so, what standard are we referring to? It doesn't work. That's what you have to conclude. Polytheism doesn't work because if the gods are not who decides what's right and wrong, and we can call on something else,
Isn't that what we should be looking for?
then they're not really gods. Because the idea of a god is an ultimate power.
They aren't ultimate. They're more like
Which is
people
what
with immense power.
Salem told Osmond they could be, the ultimate power. Because she thinks the same way the gods do. She's more powerful, She knows more, so she can take over. But Ozpin feels there's somehow something wrong with this, even though he then turns and does the same thing with the lives of everybody he lies to.
Yeah.
He thinks that because he knows more, even if he's not necessarily the most powerful, he deserves to make their decisions for them. Why is everyone so mad about this if that's actually true?
And why do humans have free will if that's actually true?
And this brings us to the problems the Remnant gods pose to the story. I mean, I think all of us were kind of surprised when we saw that episode at how stupid they were.
They were idiots.
And we're like, this is it? This is what we're stuck with? Really?
2 toddlers fighting over the rubber ball that is Earth.
The small blue ball that is Earth.
Or
batting it around between them, dividing it constantly. And yet somehow asking that human beings be united when even they cannot be united.
Feeling about the amount of
Guess
pride.
they really think we can do the impossible, huh?
Feeling the amount of pride as an older child does when drawing a face on a balloon for their creations.
Blasting the moon, destroying all humanity because you had a temper tantrum.
It's like a kid.
And then standing by and letting your brother do that. Like, I have no part in this.
It's almost like you see a kid. He builds this tower out of Legos, Lincoln Logs, whatever. And then he just leaves the room and he's just like, I have a younger brother. He likes to destroy everything I make, but I'm just going to leave it here. I know he's probably going to try to break it, but yeah.
In the end, we almost can't fault the God of Darkness for doing what he did because he's going to do what's according to his nature. Other than the weird fact that he seems able to realize that what he does can be wrong, and then we're kind of back to the whole responsibility thing. But we fault the God of Light for not doing anything about it, when obviously he could. And also, that's the problem with balance. If good and evil are still outside that, then isn't it the God of Light's responsibility to stop his brother from committing evil and tragedy, even if it means using his greater power?
What are the rules here?
What are the rules here? I mean, he calls it a tragedy. He doesn't say it was wrong, but it was obviously wrong.
So they understand for some reason that people need to be mortal, but they also don't understand at the same time. They flip between 2 understandings. What are they trying to understand and just can't grasp?
They use immortality as a punishment, but won't give you a second chance around at a mortal life because apparently that's too good for you.
What?
They pose a huge problem to the story and to the characters because the character's supposed to figure this out. If the gods could flip-flop constantly, then when it comes to uniting humanity, what exactly are they supposed to do?
I mean, technically, Salem already united humanity against the gods.
It seems like she is the one with the best shot at this, but we're not doing that again. Never again. But what is Osmond supposed to say? You know, follow me and the gods maybe won't destroy the world again? What? It seems like the option that both he and Salem would prefer, or maybe just he would prefer, is to keep the gods away from Remnant altogether. But we all know that's delaying the inevitable. Sooner or later, somebody is going to gather those relics, and they're going to come back. I don't care if they have to hold Ozpin down to a chair and to do it. Someone's going to do it. It may not be Salem, but someone. Probably RWBY. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
They're going to Atlas to get relics.
No, they're going to Atlas to protect relics.
We all know what's going to happen.
We all know what will happen, but presumably that's the reasoning. They don't want the gods to come back because they know they're not ready for it. And speaking of humanity being united, where does that put Faunus? I mean, they're not human, so does it count if they're not united?
They weren't even really created by the gods.
I mean, it seems like they must be mutations of human beings, but what? I mean, the instructions were so vague. What does united humanity even mean? Does it mean humanity all has a common goal? Or does it just mean humanity's not at war?
I mean, honestly, with rules like that, you can't really blame Salem for saying, okay, the best way to do this is to conquer everything.
We'll all be united then, right?
Or just to unite them all in death. Because she's insane.
Those gods are freaking idiots.
Well, she thinks that she'll unite them by making her people the only people left.
Just like, I have a great idea. Let's send this guy to make peace in the world and then leave his
she's delusional if she thinks that's going to work, because it never would.
Yeah, I mean, if you have all these liars, cheats, and people serving darkness around you, they're going to start cutting each other's throats.
Well, that's beside the point.
But
not only will they do that, but the people they're ruling over aren't going to kowtow to them forever. I mean,
How-
sooner or later, a living hell becomes worse than death, and you're just going to rebel.
how exactly do you expect the gods to react to this? If they succeed, this was all actually just a big setup. Because ultimately the gods will both return. The god of light might not have intended for this to happen, but if they both return, then the god of darkness will have a problem. Because either one is going to happen. Humanity is going to be reunited with morals in their minds of what they want to fight for, or they're going to be united in a maniac society where everyone wants to hold a knife to each other's throats.
So either they worship
on one hand, they're going to go for one god, and he's going to be pleased with the outcome. On the other is not, and they're going to go back to war again. It's not going to solve anything.
As we found out when Salem tricked the god of darkness, most people already worshipped his brother because they like him better. Again, just like C.S. Lewis said. So our two options are either we worship destruction, Salem, or we worship creativity, presumably Ozpin. But
He's
if
a
both gods
creative
have
liar.
to judge, how can they ever agree?
Mm.
And if there is a halfway point, in the end, doesn't that really just mean destruction won?
I mean, how can humanity reach the halfway point when they have trouble enough reaching either extreme?
See, that's the problem. You can't half destroy something and half create it. You can't be half light and half darkness. You can't. Pyrrha, ever the wise one in this series, said everyone has some of both, but you have to understand yours if you're going to fight. But we are the light and the Grimm are the darkness. There's no doubt in Pyrrha's mind which should be more powerful in human beings. There's really no doubt even that that is how it was meant to be, because the creatures of Grimm attack human beings as the light. They don't attack them as half and half. They don't care. They attack all of them unless for some reason they're under Salem's protection, and then they don't.
Well, they're already pretty dark and dead inside if they are.
What about Roman?
And even so, the people who seem a little less crazy, like Roman and Emerald, still end up having to fight them. So there is no solution except something beyond the gods. That brings us to love. Back to love.
If you ask me, I think the best thing the show could do with this is introduce that there is a higher power. Some god that is love, or at least gave humanity
I have a
its
feeling
love.
they're going to go more Nietzsche.
I don't think they'll call it love. What do you mean, Nietzsche?
Well, maybe I'm not using the term properly because I'm not really familiar with his work, but he was the guy who was all like, God is dead and humanity is what's left.
It does seem like they might do that. Like they might go with that, we only have each other. But even so, I think maybe some kind of peace will be achieved with at least the god of light. I can't say for sure. But we do know that even if they go with that more Nietzsche sort of thing, what the real answer is then still remains love. It's what binds humanity together. The only thing that can.
Frankly, with the gods, if they were to die somehow, if that's possible, their effects would still last upon civilization forever. What reason would they have to stick to one moral code? Would have to be love.
See, the gods of Remnant and any polytheistic gods are insecure. I mean, they're constantly afraid of losing power, of losing worship. While love isn't insecure. I mean, at least it shouldn't be. Love is unselfish. It's patient. It's kind. It's basically what RWBY lives her life by. The same thing Pyrrha lived her life by. The same thing all the best characters have kind of been in line with.
I dare say Pyrrha was such an example because what she lived for and the example of her character and what was inside of her was in direct defiance with the gods' moral standing. Love.
Well, I wouldn't say it was in direct defiance, but it was more like Pyrrha saw something beyond that, you know? I mean, one of her most famous lines is in her speech when she unlocked John's aura. In passing, we achieve immortality and become a paragon of virtue, unbound by death and other things like that. And it's like whatever she was taught, it was that there's something beyond just light and darkness. There's a reason that we do what we do, you know? And that reason is love. I mean, like I said, it's the power behind Ruby's eyes. It's the only thing that's enabled Blake to kind of start turning from her past and changing people's minds. It's love. I mean, it's the ongoing theme. Love is the thing that united Salem and Osmond briefly before their own issues tore them apart again. And it's beyond the power of the gods. Of course, if you're like us and you're a Christian, you know that, well, you believe that God is love. And that makes perfect sense. It's the only thing strong enough, I think, to fix this plot and really to fix anything in life.
I mean, unless you have some flex tape.
What?
I'm with this saw. I'm gonna saw this bone in half and repair it with flex tape.
And do you guys have any closing thoughts? Because that was pretty much it for me.
No, that's pretty good.
Okay, well, we actually kept our time limit, so...
All I'm gonna say is, I hope that the writers come up with a good resolution here. Because something needs to be done about the gods. The situation needs to be fixed. But we'll have to watch and see, I guess.
For the next couple of years.
Can't believe season 6 is already almost over.
Shh! Okay. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you had any more comments about that, feel free to leave them below.
Or if you just
give us
watching.
A like,
That's
subscribe maybe for more of this. And we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.